I always thought I was a good judge of character. After all, I built a successful real estate portfolio from the ground up, starting with one crumbling fixer-upper in my early 30s and turning it into a portfolio of 9 properties by 42. But I never thought I'd be so wrong about the one person I trusted more than anyone, my wife, Leah. Leah and I had been married for 13 years. She was with me before the business took off, back when we were just scraping by and living in a one-bedroom apartment above a dry cleaner. I always believed that counted for something. Through the long nights and the tough flips, she stood by me, so I thought. She didn't care for the details, but she appreciated the results. Whenever I handed her a check or surprised her with a vacation, she'd kiss me and say, "I love how hard you work for us." But somewhere along the way, that us turned into her. And I was too busy, too trusting, too proud to see the cracks forming. The turning point came when I had to travel out of state for 2 weeks. A close friend, also a mentor, had passed away unexpectedly, and I was asked to help settle some property matters for the family. It was urgent and time-sensitive. Leah didn't seem bothered by my leaving. In fact, she encouraged it. "You should go," she said. "You owe it to him." Looking back, I realize now that she saw it as an opportunity. The property in question, the one she would betray me over, was my pride and joy. A downtown duplex I bought 10 years ago when the neighborhood was still on the edge. I had poured my heart into it. I remodeled both units with my own hands, saved every penny for materials, and even built custom cabinets with my father before he passed. That duplex wasn't just real estate, it was legacy, and more importantly, it was mine. Fully paid off, solely in my name. At least, that's what I believed. A few days into my trip, I noticed something strange. One of the tenants texted me. "Hey, just wanted to confirm. Should I be dealing with a new property manager?" A lady stopped by saying she's handling the property now. I froze. I hadn't hired anyone. I called Leah immediately. She answered on the second ring, overly cheerful. "Hey babe, everything okay?" "Did you talk to the tenants at the duplex?" "Oh, that. Yeah, I stopped by to make sure everything looked all right, just being helpful." "Helpful," I repeated, my voice sharp. "I just thought it would be smart to check in since you're out of town. Don't worry." But I did worry. Something in her tone felt off, so I dug deeper. I called my lawyer the next morning and asked him to check the title of the property. By that afternoon, I had my answer. The duplex had been sold, transferred to a holding company I'd never heard of. I couldn't breathe. How the hell was that even possible? It turns out, a few months earlier, Leah had asked me to sign a stack of what she claimed were refinancing papers for our home. I had been on the phone during the signing, distracted by a contractor issue, and didn't read every page. One of those documents was a forged power of attorney, giving her temporary authority to act on my behalf for real estate matters. The notary, likely paid under the table or duped herself, had signed off without blinking. With that document, Leah had gone behind my back, found a buyer for the duplex, and sold it for well under market value, just to get quick cash. She didn't even negotiate. I found out later she'd used a shady off-market investor who paid her under the table and kicked back a bonus for a fast deal. Her plan, liquidate the asset, stash the money, and convince me it was a smart move once I returned. Maybe even act like I'd approved it all in some long-forgotten conversation. But I was 2 steps ahead, and angrier than I'd ever been in my life. Instead of calling her out immediately, I kept calm. I needed proof. I requested copies of all transaction documents, traced the wire transfers, and even contacted the investor directly, posing as a new buyer interested in the company's other holdings. That's when the next twist came in. The investor was someone I knew. Not well, but enough. A guy named Denny Fields. We had both bid on a foreclosure a year prior. Back then, I didn't trust him. Something about his energy was off. And now, he'd bought my duplex in cash, flipped it into his company's portfolio, and was planning to rent it out within weeks. But here's what Leah didn't know. I had quietly placed a right of first refusal clause in the title back when I refinanced the property years ago. That clause stated that if anyone ever attempted to sell the property, I had the first legal right to buy it back, as long as I invoked the clause within 30 days of the sale, and I had 6 days left. I didn't waste a second. The clock was ticking. Armed with my legal documents, I called my lawyer and invoked the right of first refusal clause. He was stunned. It wasn't a common clause for a personal property. "Smart move," he said. "She didn't even realize it was there. Most people don't." Neither did the investor. Within hours, we filed the paperwork, and Denny Fields had no choice but to either back out of the deal entirely or sell it back to me under the clause at the same price he bought it for. He wasn't happy. He tried stalling, claimed he'd already put money into repairs. I reminded him I had legal claim, and if he delayed, I'd file for fraud, report the title issues, and tie him up in court for months. He caved. I wired the funds, ironically, using money from my untouched offshore account Leah had no clue existed. That was my actual safety net. For years, I had funneled a portion of profits into a private account in a trust under my mother's maiden name. It wasn't shady, it was smart. In case of divorce, emergency, or disaster, I'd always have a financial escape hatch. And now, it was my war chest. The duplex was mine again. But I wasn't done. I wanted Leah to know she lost more than just money. She lost me, and everything I built. So I played it cool when I came home. Leah was all smiles at the door. "How was the trip?" she asked, kissing me on the cheek like nothing had happened. "I made your favorite, steak and garlic potatoes." I sat down, ate with her, talked about the weather, the flight, meaningless things, but inside, I was boiling and waiting. 2 days later, I printed every document, emails, bank wires, forged papers, notarized forms, and my legal reclaim of the duplex. I laid them out on the kitchen table like a crime scene. When she came home, she froze. "What's all this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You tell me," I said calmly. "You sold my duplex, illegally, and you thought I'd never find out." She tried to lie. At first, said it was a mistake, said she thought I wanted to liquidate assets, said I had signed off. I didn't budge. "I know about the forged power of attorney, Leah. I know the notary was fake. I know Denny gave you a kickback. I know everything." She sat down slowly. Her face went white. "I bought it back," I said, voice firm. "And now you're out." "Out? What do you mean?" she stammered. "I'm filing for divorce," I said. "I've already spoken to my attorney. The house, the business accounts, the properties, everything you thought you could steal, you won't touch a dime. You're on the prenup. You get nothing." Her expression cracked. "You wouldn't." I leaned forward. "I would. And I did. You tried to rob me while I was out of town helping a grieving family. You forged my name. You betrayed me. And now you'll see what betrayal feels like." That night, I moved her things into the guest house, not because I had to, but because I wanted her to sit with the reality that she was no longer part of my house, my life, or my empire. Over the next few weeks, I made quiet moves. Froze joint accounts, moved remaining funds into private trust accounts, reclaimed 2 more properties she had tried to leverage with Denny behind my back. I even hired a forensic accountant. Turns out, Leah had been siphoning money for months. Luxury handbags, spa getaways, even flights to LA to visit a man she told me was her cousin. He wasn't her cousin. I sent photos of their little beach trip to her attorney. That sealed it. Divorce court was quick. She didn't contest. She couldn't. She walked away with exactly what our prenup allowed, a lump sum that wouldn't buy a decent used car. She cried. She begged. "Please, let me explain." But I was already gone. My lawyer served her papers on a Thursday. By Friday, the locks were changed. And by Monday, I was back at the duplex, walking through its familiar halls, mine again, untouched by her hands. A month later, I sold it, but this time for double. to a young couple who wanted to start a family. I even lowered the price slightly after hearing their story, because I remembered what it was like to build something out of nothing with someone you thought would never stab you in the back. Now, I live alone, happily. I'm rebuilding, not from scratch, but from clarity. And the lesson was clear. Trust is earned, not assumed. Even love, when left unchecked, can rot into greed, but revenge, when done with precision and patience, that's just justice served cold, with a signature you don't forge.